Hello folks, my name is Mark, this is Why I Hate the World. How you guys doing? So, Donald Trump has declared a national emergency to build his border wall. There is a lot to unpack in this. None of it good. Okay, now first thing I want to say about this, because I'm sure this has been in the news 24/7 for the last couple days. I'm sure there's plenty of analysis out there that you can get. One thing I want to mention here, though, right, is that it kind of shows how desperate he is in order to get his name on something, an accomplishment, because I think Donald Trump realizes that he's doing a very shitty job, and you can kind of see it in him when he goes out and he goes on a, speaking tour or something. He always has to brag about himself and how he's the best president ever. And it's like, he gets up and he says, no president has ever done anything as much as we have in the first 2 years and all this other shit. And he always brags about things that he just has not done. He's taking credit for North Korea getting rid of their nuclear weapons, which is bullshit. And, claiming that the economy is so super awesome because of him, which is bullshit. And that he's passed all this legislation and stuff when he hasn't passed shit, And I think a lot of it is like his signature accomplishment up until this point has been a tax cut that everybody hates and is starting to backfire on people. And a lot of people right now, especially because they're doing their taxes for the first time since this came into effect, a lot of people are getting fucked up the ass by it right now. I'm kind of afraid to see how much I'm going to have to pay. I know I'm going to have to because I live in California. But, a lot of people are really paranoid over that shit, and he's getting some pushback from his own base. And I think he's desperate to get a win. If he gets this wall, then all of his, hardcore base who are turning on him right now because of the taxes are going to support him again. And that's what I think is the number one thing here. This is a desperate ploy. Right. And it really is desperate, if you think about it, because for 2 years, the Republicans had control of the entire government. They had all of it. They had both houses of Congress, right? The executive and the legislative branch, right? They had anything. They could have done anything they wanted. They could have passed anything they wanted, right? They didn't do shit, okay? All they did was a gigantic tax cut for the extremely rich people that now is starting to bite them in the ass because people, their core supporters are starting to realize how badly they got screwed, right? They don't, and so it kind of shows you, that he doesn't really give a fuck about this. He doesn't care about it because they didn't make it a priority, okay? So now, all of a sudden, he cares. 2 years pass, right? It never comes up. They never had the votes for it, even when the Republicans were in charge of the House, right? Now all of a sudden, there's an election, the Democrats gain control of 1/2 of one branch of government. Okay. 1/2 of one branch of government, the Democrats have it. Suddenly it's all their fault that they can't get a wall built, right? Now all of a sudden, Donald Trump is shutting down the government in order to get a stupid ass wall built. Now, that didn't work, right? So he puts, almost 1 million people out of work for a month. Costs the country who knows how many billions of dollars in economic activity because all these people are out of work, right? Does permanent damage to the national parks and things like that, right? Basically, the whole thing backfires on him extremely hard, and he still didn't get his stupid fucking wall, right? So now he's declaring a national emergency. The problem is that there is no emergency, right? First off, they've been talking about declaring a national emergency since when the fucking government was shut down. I mean, for over a month, they've been talking about him doing this, right? So it's not really an emergency when you telegraph it like that. If you're going to tell someone that we're planning this emergency, that doesn't make it an emergency. Second thing is that the number of border crossings, people crossing the border, right, is the lowest it's been in like 14, 15 years. It's extremely low now, okay? It's like, it's not, how the fuck is it an emergency when there's less people crossing now than there have been in 15 years. How does that make any sense? Okay? It doesn't make sense, right? Because it's not an emergency. And the thing is that Donald Trump himself doesn't think it's an emergency. He even said, you know, during the speech where he was declaring this, that he even said, I don't have to do this. I didn't have to do this. I want the funding faster. That's why he's doing it, because he doesn't want to go through Congress. He wants to build it faster, because he has to build it faster, because he needs results before the election comes around. And he knows that he's not going to get it through Congress, and then 2020 is going to come around, he's not going to have his wall, and that's going to be the one thing that his followers, who are already pissed off over the taxes, they're going to dump his ass because he didn't deliver. And this is why he's doing this now. That's what it's about. And that's the thing, is that it's extremely bad. It's extremely bad because of the president, because it's a power grab from Congress, right? And he's not even doing it to like take over the country and suspend elections and become dictator for life. He's not even doing it for that reason. He's doing it to get a political win so he can get reelected, because he's a fucking loser. All right? That's the thing about it, though, is that whenever there's a power grab like this, right, which in my lifetime has only happened when Republicans are the president. All right? You know, Bill Clinton never did any power grabs like this. Right? Barack Obama didn't. You know, George W. Bush did. You know, those signing statements, right? If you guys remember that, basically a bill would pass. George W. Bush would do a signing statement basically saying, you know, I'm not going to obey this law because XYZ. Right? Basically, that's when George W. Bush started doing that. Okay, that's a power grab right there, right? National security letters. That's another one. Bush, you know, that happened under Bush's administration, right? Things like that. You know, they only happen under Republicans for some fucking reason. Anyway, moving on. The thing about this is that, you know, when this kind of thing happens, right, you have to think about not just the person who's in charge now, but who's going to be in charge in the future. Okay. You know what? I can name one. I can name one instance of a power grab under Obama, when he did a drone strike on an American citizen without a trial. Now, if you guys remember that, basically there's this guy who was in Al-Qaeda, I can't remember his name right now, right? And Barack Obama basically executed him, you know. It was an extrajudicial killing, basically killed him, executed him without a trial, right? Well, the problem is that that's an American citizen. I mean, even if he is in Al-Qaeda, right? They classified him as a non-combatant. Well, you know, you got to think about not just the person in charge, but the people who were going to eventually, you know, later on, a different president might choose to abuse that power. So right now there's a precedent that the president can order the execution of an American citizen if that person is a non-combatant, right? Do you trust Donald Trump with that power? Right. Let's say some kind of crazy wackadoodle, you know, religious nutcase who thinks that they're God's conduit to bringing around the fucking apocalypse becomes president. You know, Mike Huckabee or something like that. Or, you know, Mike Pence. Let's say one of those guys becomes the president. You know, one of these people who are sitting there with their finger 1 inch above the button, you know, like screaming at God, you know, tell me, Lord, tell me when to launch the missiles, you know. One of those fucking guys, right? Then they're in charge. Suddenly they have the ability to kill anyone they want as long as that person is a non-combatant. Do you trust them with that power, right? That's how you got to think about these things. Donald Trump is using this power to build a fucking wall so he can get reelected, right? Think about how some other president may abuse this, you know, because it says specifically in the Constitution, the president is not allowed to create legislation, right? It has to come through Congress. See, it's not just the power of the purse, you know, it's legislation, all right? Because spending, you know, is basically a bill, right? So that's how the spending works. Basically, Congress passes a spending bill. Well, that bill is a law, all right? So when they allocate money to certain programs, It's not just a suggestion, right? That is a law. That means that much money must go to those programs. Okay? There is no, and if it doesn't, the law is being broken. Okay? Donald Trump has basically said, fuck all that. I'm taking that money away from these programs that by law they have to go to, and I'm going to use it over here for shit that I want. That's the power that he's taking. How do you trust the president to have this power? See, this is the one thing that separates our president from some Tin Pot fucking dictator out there, right? That, you know, separates us from North Korea or fucking, you know, Colombia or whatever the fuck, right? That our president isn't allowed to just do that. Our president can't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I want a 300-foot statue of myself on the front lawn of the White House, made out of, you know, gold, right? President can't do that. Saddam Hussein could do that. You know, in fact, I remember a news story about Saddam Hussein riding around in a golden carriage, right? After they confiscated all the gold from everyone in Iraq, he's riding around in this golden carriage. That was on the fucking Daily Show. Okay, that's what makes our country different. That's why our country has lasted 250 odd years, right? Whereas some fucking, you know, dictatorship in South America only lasts as long as the person who's in charge, right? That's why. All right, that's why in Haiti they've had like 97 changes of government in the last, you know, 5 years. Right, because they, you know, it's by design. This is how it's supposed to be by design, right? Donald Trump is taking that shit. You know, he's basically wiping that away, and you know, you got to remember, it's not just him. Personally, I think Donald Trump doesn't want to be president. I think he doesn't have the intellectual capacity for it. I think he's too lazy, right? And I think the only thing that's keeping him in office right now is his fucking ego. That he doesn't want to, like, leave in shame. He wants to leave, you know, on top is what he wants. He wants to serve 2 terms and then leave as a popular president so his name will be in the history books. And he knows that he's not going to get that, right? He knows he's not going to get it unless he builds his dumbass wall. That doesn't worry me, right? Some other president later on, when the Republicans have gotten even more crazy, right? That's what fucking bothers me. So this is why you should care about this, okay? Now, a lot of people right now are saying, well, you know, this is going to be held up in the courts for years and years and years and blah, 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 blah. Well, are you so sure about that? You know, that's what we said about their Muslim ban, right? The Muslim ban is in effect now, okay? That's what they said, you know, oh, it'll you know, and that's, you know, that's what happened. It did go through the courts for 2 years, and then it went to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court upheld it, right? Because the Supreme Court is, you know, tipped towards the Republicans now, right? Because they control it. That's what happens, you know, elections have consequences. Donald Trump gets to choose 2 Supreme Court justices. They're gonna rule in his favor, all right? And, you know, you gotta think of it like this. You can't trust in the institutions, because institutions are just people. Okay, especially when it comes to a political party that so often and so easily looks the other way when it comes, you know, when the reward is them making, you know, making money and getting more power, right? Consistently, like Republicans always do. All right, they're the fucking problem here. I don't know. You can't trust in this shit, okay? I mean, you know, yeah, maybe it might take 2 years, and by that point he might be gone. And then if he leaves, you know, then yeah, maybe they'll drop the case. There's a very good chance that Donald Trump gets reelected. All right, you got to think about that shit, okay? He very well might. You know, the Democrats might still not be able to come together as a coherent party. You know, they might be too busy fucking fighting over who's pure enough. It's already fucking happening. Right, and if we don't put a united front up, Donald Trump gets reelected. And if that happens, this border wall goes through. And then the president is one step closer to being a dictator. Right? This is the most likely scenario. You guys gotta, you know, shit isn't funny. It's not funny at all. I mean, the thing is that I don't have a solution. What do? I don't know. Call your congressman. Right? That's it. That's really it. column, and it's really, I think, at this point going to take the public turning against it, you know. But I don't think that's going to happen because 40% of our people out there, you know, still support this guy, right? That's what's wrong with the country right now, right? In one number, 40% approval rating. That's what's wrong with America. Anyway, that's all I got, folks. Adios.